Imagine waking up one day and realizing the mirror no longer recognizes you. Your reflection stands there, hair matted, a faded shirt clinging to a body reshaped by sacrifice, but the woman inside feels like a ghost trapped behind glass. You touch your face, half expecting your hand to pass through it. Who is this person blinking back at you? Once, not so long ago, you moved through the world with a kind of silent certainty. You had places to be, goals stretching out in every direction like golden threads you could run toward. You had spontaneity at your fingertips, impulsive road trips, lazy mornings tangled in sun-warmed sheets, laughter that didn't have to be quiet or scheduled. You were someone before motherhood wrapped itself around you like ivy, beautiful, yes, but slowly tightening. And now you sit in the wreckage of that old life, clutching a lukewarm coffee, feeling like an imposter in your own story. The paradox is almost cruel. You have given life, yet feel emptied of your own. How is it possible to gain something so precious and simultaneously lose something so vital? There are moments, terrifying in their honesty, when you wonder if the old version of you is dead. If she slipped out the back door quietly one night while you rocked a colicky baby against your chest, shushing and swaying in the dark. You didn't even notice she was leaving. There was no funeral, no ritual of goodbye, just this creeping, disorienting absence. You scroll past old photos on your phone and feel an ache so sharp it nearly doubles you over. There you are, laughing with friends at a crowded rooftop bar, hair shining under fairy lights. There you are, hiking alone at sunrise, your breath visible in the chill morning air, your eyes fierce and wide open to the world. Where is she now? Where did she go when the demands of tiny hands and endless needs filled every crack and crevice of your time? It would be easier if the world acknowledged this loss. If someone sat you down after the baby showers and the gender reveals and said, "Listen, this is going to hurt in ways you can't predict. You're going to mourn yourself." But instead, there is only the unspoken expectation. Gratitude. Endless, blinding gratitude. Because isn't this what you wanted? Because how dare you feel anything but blessed? And so you bury it. You laugh at the jokes about sleepless nights. You post the adorable milestone photos. You nod when someone says, "Enjoy every minute, it goes by so fast," even though some minutes feel like small eternities strung together by exhaustion and guilt. But at 2 a.m., when the house is still and your mind refuses to be, the truth scrapes against your ribs, you miss your old life. You miss her. And the missing is not a betrayal of your child. It is not ingratitude. It is simply the tectonic plates of your identity grinding against one another, reshaping the landscape of who you are. No one told you how loud that grinding would be, how much it would feel like the end of the world. Maybe you whisper it into the dark, the words curling out like smoke, "I miss my old life." Maybe you don't dare say it at all, because speaking it would make it real, undeniable. But it's real whether you say it or not. It hums under every carefully packed diaper bag, every reshuffled calendar, every awkward conversation where you can no longer connect with the women you once called sisters. You stand on a tightrope between two selves, the woman you were and the mother you are, and some days it feels like you're falling into the chasm between them. Is it possible to grieve and love at the same time? Is it possible to rebuild without erasing who you used to be? The questions coil around you, thorny and insistent, as you realize this isn't just about missing brunch dates or spontaneous road trips. It's about missing a self that once felt sovereign, whole, unfragmented. But here's the unsettling truth no one dares to name. Motherhood doesn't just change you, it demands a kind of death. And from that death, something else must rise. Something you don't yet recognize, something you're afraid to meet. And so the journey begins, not just into sleepless nights and tiny miracles, but into a confrontation with yourself that you never consented to but cannot escape. Because how do you rebuild when you can't even find the ruins? How do you name what you've lost when everyone around you insists you've gained the whole world? You start searching for her in the smallest, most unlikely places. In the 5 stolen minutes between nap time and another load of laundry. In the songs you hum under your breath without even realizing, songs from a life that feels increasingly like fiction. In the way your body still remembers how to dance, if only a little, swaying in the kitchen while pured carrots stain your socks. But it's like chasing smoke. Every glimpse of her is a reminder of how far she's drifted. You wonder, is this just the natural order of things? Is the old you supposed to be a sacrificial lamb on the altar of motherhood? Or is there a way, a small, stubborn way, to gather up the broken pieces and start building something new? The loneliness of this question is its own kind of ache, because no one tells you how profoundly isolating this identity shift can be. They warn you about sleepless nights and toddler tantrums. They do not warn you that you might look at your own reflection and feel like you're meeting a stranger's eyes. You try to talk about it, tentatively, dropping hints into conversations like fragile offerings. "I'm not sure who I am anymore," you joke, with a laugh that doesn't quite reach your eyes. "Must be mom brain," someone says, chuckling, and the moment closes like a door slamming shut. You learn, quickly, that certain truths are too uncomfortable to speak aloud, and so you carry it in silence. The longing, the confusion, the quiet rage against a society that romanticizes motherhood into pastel-colored perfection while silencing the gritty, bleeding reality of what it actually demands. You wonder if it's selfish to want both, to be the mother and the woman, to cradle a child in one arm and your ambitions, your wildness, your desires in the other. But how do you hold both when the world keeps telling you there's only room for one? You hear it in the subtext of every well-meaning comment, "You're a mom now," as if that title, sacred and heavy, must eclipse every other name you once answered to. Dreamer, artist, adventurer, lover, gone, or at least muted, swallowed whole by a role too vast and too narrow all at once. There's a cruel irony here. Motherhood is supposed to expand you, to make your heart bigger, your world richer. And yet, sometimes, it feels like a narrowing, a closing in, a slow suffocation beneath invisible expectations. You sit on the floor one afternoon, toys scattered like landmines around you, and you realize you haven't had a real, uninterrupted thought in days. Your mind is a staccato of needs: diaper, snack, cry, cuddle. There's no room for the long, wandering thoughts that used to define you, the dreams that once unfurled inside you like tapestries. And so you begin to grieve. Not with tears, always. Sometimes grief looks like numbness. Sometimes it looks like scrolling blankly through social media, seeing everyone else's curated joy and wondering why yours feels so jagged. Sometimes it looks like snapping at the people you love most, because they want the version of you that used to exist, the one who said yes to every plan, who was up for anything, and you don't know how to explain that she's gone, or at least hiding somewhere you can't reach. But even grief can be a kind of map, because in naming what you miss, you start to trace the outline of what still matters. The passions that made you feel alive before, maybe they are still there, buried under layers of obligation and exhaustion. The parts of you that lit up in the presence of beauty, of connection, of challenge, maybe they are bruised, not broken. Maybe motherhood didn't destroy you. Maybe it stripped you down to the studs, to the raw foundation, so that you could rebuild more honestly. But rebuilding is not passive. It requires a ferocity you didn't know you had. It demands saying things out loud that will make people uncomfortable. I love my child with a bone-deep, relentless love. And also, I miss my freedom. I miss my body being mine alone. I miss the woman who could disappear into a book for hours without interruption. You realize the world offers few templates for this duality. Women are praised for selflessness, not for self-preservation. Mothers are celebrated for devotion, not for daring to still want more. But you start wanting anyway. Wanting afternoons spent doing anything that doesn't revolve around keeping someone else alive. Wanting conversations that aren't punctuated by cries and spills. Wanting to be seen not just as a mother, but as a person, complex, unfinished, burning quietly with dreams that didn't evaporate the moment the pregnancy test turned positive. And the wanting itself becomes an act of rebellion, a whisper in your bloodstream: I am still here. I am still here. The guilt doesn't vanish. It clings, stubborn and familiar. But guilt is not always a reliable compass. Sometimes it points you toward obedience, not authenticity. And if there is one thing motherhood demands, the kind of motherhood that honors both you and the child you are raising, it is authenticity. Not the hollow performance of perfection, but the raw, messy, defiant claiming of your whole self. Even the parts that grieve, even the parts that rage, even the parts that dream wildly, selfishly, audaciously. Especially those parts, because if you lose them, what will your child see when they look at you? A woman who disappeared? Or a woman who fought, tooth and nail, to remain whole? The answers are not simple. They never are. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the fatigue and the fear, you begin to understand. This isn't about returning to your old life. It's about forging something new, something vast enough to hold both the mother and the woman. Even if, right now, all you have are ashes and aching hands. Rebuilding doesn't happen all at once. It starts with the smallest, most defiant acts. Choosing, for instance, to take a shower not just for hygiene, but for ritual, washing not only the day's debris but the layers of invisibility clinging to your skin. Choosing to write a single paragraph, to paint a single brushstroke, to lace up your shoes and walk a block further than you think you can, simply because it reminds you that your body is still your own. Some days, that's all you can manage. A tiny rebellion, a whispered refusal to disappear. And some days you fail. You disappear into the role because it's easier, because the effort of holding onto yourself feels too heavy, too lonely, too futile. You lay down your dreams like burdens you were never meant to carry. You tell yourself it's noble. You tell yourself it's maturity. But late at night, when the house breathes its slow, sleeping rhythm and your own breath feels jagged and foreign, you know the truth. You cannot love from an empty place. You cannot give your child the fullness of you if you have abandoned yourself along the way. So you begin again, and again, and again. You begin by listening to the quietest parts of yourself, the parts drowned out for so long you forgot they had a voice. The part that yearns for silence not filled with cartoons and to-do lists. The part that hungers for beauty, for adventure, for the unplannable, the raw and uncurated. You start asking dangerous questions. What if my needs matter, too? What if modeling wholeness is one of the greatest gifts I can give my child? What if losing my old life was not the end, but the necessary cracking open before something fiercer and freer could emerge? The world won't hand you back your identity. You will have to fight for it. In the face of subtle judgment, the raised eyebrows when you take a weekend away, the casual comments about mom guilt, you will have to stand your ground. You will have to learn to live with the discomfort of disappointing others. You will have to redefine success on your own brutal, beautiful terms. Not perfection, not constant availability, not endless self-erasure, but presence. Real, rooted presence. Presence that comes not from martyrdom, but from a life richly and unapologetically lived. You will have to mother yourself, too, to offer the same gentleness and patience you instinctively give your child to the battered parts of your own spirit. You will have to rebuild trust with yourself. Trust that even when you feel lost, you are still moving. Trust that grief and joy can coexist. Trust that missing your old life does not diminish your love for your current one, it deepens it, adds texture, makes it real. Slowly, the new life begins to take shape. It is not the old life, resurrected. It is not the perfect fantasy you once clung to. It is rough-edged and tender, stitched together with late-night tears and small, stubborn joys. It is a life where you are allowed to be tired, where you are allowed to want, where you are allowed to say, I am a mother and I am still becoming. There will be days when you catch glimpses of her, that other version of you, not as a ghost, but as a companion. She sits beside you as you nurse your child, and you realize, she never left. She only changed shape. She lives now in the strength of your voice when you say no, in the wild hope that unfurls inside you at the thought of a future that belongs to you, too, in the courage it takes to step out into the world, not as a perfect mother, but as a whole, imperfect woman. You will not always feel brave. Some mornings, you will still look in the mirror and flinch. You will still wonder if you are enough for them, for you, for the life you are trying to build from scratch. But even on those mornings, something will anchor you. The knowledge that you did not vanish. The knowledge that survival was not the endgame, becoming was. And becoming is messy, holy work. It is saying yes to playdates and deadlines, to macaroni art and manuscript drafts, to late-night fevers and early morning runs, to board meetings and bonfires, to scraped knees and soaring dreams. It is refusing to be reduced to a single story. It is understanding that your child does not need a mother who is always available but hollowed out. They need a mother who is vivid, stubbornly alive, cracked open by life and stitched together by choice. They need to see that loving them and loving yourself are not opposing forces but twin flames, burning brighter because of each other. One day, when they are grown, they will face their own crossroads, their own seasons of identity loss and rebirth. And because you fought for yourself, they will know it is possible to fight for themselves, too. Not perfectly, not easily, but fiercely. And so you keep building, breath by breath, choice by choice. Not to return to the woman you were. She was beautiful, but she was never meant to stay frozen in time. You build to honor her, to carry her forward into a life spacious enough to hold all your names: mother, daughter, dreamer, warrior, lover, friend, self. You build because losing your old life was never the full story. It was the beginning of a deeper becoming, one that holds grief and gratitude in the same trembling hands, one that whispers, even on the hardest days, I am still here, and I am still becoming.